And, you should also get in touch with them in future because they leave their contacts with us, and it's a great opportunity to touch base with them and see how you can take your business further with their guidance. All right, without much further ado, I think it's a good time now to kickstart this particular session. So welcome again. This is the first masterclass webinar series that we are running in this month, which is in October. And this brings to a conclusion an 8-part series we've been running with Claudia of With Small Business. In today's topic, we'll be talking about social advertising, the secrets to getting the best return on investment on your social advertising. Welcome, Claudia and Steve. Glad to have you both back again. Steve, thank you for a fantastic session you ran last time for us on SEM. Claudia, a pleasure to have you with us as always, every single month. So thank you for that. I'm going to hand it over to you so that you can do your introductions and get started.
Wonderful. Thank you, Uma. Well, welcome everybody. Just to reiterate, our session today is on secrets to getting the best ROI in social advertising. So this is actually my 10th masterclass with Shopmatic. I've been going through the e-commerce growth framework since December last year. And I really wanted to thank Shopmatic for allowing me to present the whole framework over the past year, and really looking forward to taking you with my amazing co-host, Steve, through this final session. So just a little bit about me for those who haven't joined my masterclasses before. I'm Claudia North, co-founder of With Small Business. I'm basically a practicing certified marketer, and I've been in digital marketing and strategy for more than 25 years. I've worked in Australia, I've worked in New Zealand, Asia, as well as North America, and I've also founded my own e-commerce businesses. And because of all of this, I actually started With Small Business to make e-commerce marketing advice affordable for small businesses. So today I'm going to share with you a unique framework that has actually helped many small businesses grow their online business. And I'm going to introduce to you the overall framework and then where social advertising fits within that framework. As I mentioned earlier, we have Steve Fitz, who's going to be co-hosting our session today, and I'll introduce him a little shortly. But before we do that, we'll just jump into the agenda for our session today. So what we're going to cover is we're going to start off with what is social advertising, just to clarify for everybody the definition of what that is. Then we're going to go into the fundamentals to getting started in social right away. Then we've also got Steve, who's going to be speaking on the secrets from a social advertising professional perspective. And then finally, any social advertising pitfalls to watch out for. Now, having been in digital marketing for many, many years, I can tell you there are that many pitfalls in digital. So to be able to have access to such a wonderful expert to help us navigate the digital social advertising path is really exciting. And if you do have any questions, please just hold them until the end of the session, where we will have our question and answer session, and we can discuss anything we have then. So we're going to get started as we do with a poll. So Uma, if you could pop the poll up for us, we would like to understand what experience you've actually had with social advertising. This just gives us a little bit of insight into our audience today, and if we can tailor sort of our messaging just in accordance with what you guys are up to. So we have just one response. So basically, either I have not used social ads, I'm a beginner, so you've just started using social media advertising, maybe you're advanced, or maybe you've actually got somebody that's doing the social advertising for you and you want to learn a little bit more about that. Uma, are you able to put the poll up?
Yes, I'm just putting the poll up right now. So here we go.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, to help repeat what Claudia's query was for our polls, the choices you have here for the question, what is your current experience with social advertising? Choices are, it's a single choice answer. I have not used social ads. I'm a beginner with social ads. I'm advanced with social ads, or I have someone doing my social ads for me. There is no real right or wrong answer. Just, share with us what is your experience at this point in time. It just helps us to really shape this conversation so that it's the most, best takeaway for you at the end of it. At this point in time, we have almost everyone saying, or not almost everyone, it is 100% vote for I'm a beginner with social ads, Claudia and Steve. So
awesome.
Yep. So
awesome.
Yep,
You're in the right place.
You're at the right place.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is great because it means
let me end the poll so we can go on.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, which is great because it means that you've had a go, and so you've probably got more questions, which means you'll get lots of value out of the session today. So that's good news. Okay, so for those of you that haven't joined my masterclasses before, I just wanted to give you some context on where social advertising, or also called social paid media, sits in the e-commerce growth framework. For those that have come to my masterclasses before, you should very well remember this slide. But basically, I've talked about how important your foundations are when growing your online business. The more you focus on investing time and money into your foundations, the better your business is poised for growth and scale. And it also puts you in a position to more effectively grow your business, particularly when you start investing in advertising. So we've touched on over the past year these 8 foundations that lay the groundwork for growth and scale. We've used this framework with startups through to established e-commerce businesses that are turning over multi-millions of dollars annually online. And doesn't matter whether you're a startup or an established business, these foundations have really supported sustainable growth. It also really simplifies your digital marketing, and it will help support consistent growth over time rather than some peaks and troughs that we often see with on again, off again campaigns. We've also found that the longer that businesses have actually committed to this framework, the more their revenue actually increases to new levels of growth consistently. So we highly recommend that you head on over to Shopmatic's YouTube channel after this masterclass tomorrow, maybe next week. You can either go to see the original, the previous masterclasses on YouTube, or on the Shopmatic website. If you go to Go Shopmatic and you have a look at the resources tab, you can select webinars, and that's where you'll find all the other masterclasses. So as I mentioned, today we're going to do our deeper dive on our final e-commerce growth foundation, which is social paid media or social advertising. So what is social advertising? So social media advertising is when we're paying to get ads served up to your particular target audiences using social media platforms. So that can include Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Pinterest, YouTube, etc. Now, if you're new to this channel, Uma and Steve and I were talking a little bit earlier about this, it really can be daunting and challenging to get started. I often say to my clients that you almost need a degree to be able to operate these platforms because of the complexities. And so this is one of the reasons that I actually place advertising at the end of the e-commerce growth foundations. And the reason being is, as a small business owner, we know that resources can be finite, and investing money into advertising, we want to make sure that we're driving the most effective return based on that spend. And if we're going to invest into advertising, we want to make sure that we've got things set up that are going to help make that effective, such as, capturing people's email addresses when they come to your website, making sure we've got, a good conversion rate, with our website. So a number of those other foundations actually put in place different tactics that will ensure that once you start spending money, that you're really optimizing and maximizing that spend. So another reason we have to use social advertising, so a lot of us use social from an organic content perspective, but the reason why it's really important once we start to get some traction in our social organics strategy is to introduce advertising, is because basically for some of the social channels, Facebook, Instagram, for example, the organic reach of your page post is around 5%. which is extremely, extremely low. So now I just would like to introduce our co-host, Steve Fitz. He's actually the founder and managing director of Digital Domination. I actually stalked Steve on LinkedIn some time ago. I read a few of his articles on digital marketing and was very inspired by his authentic approach. And so I connected with him. I thought he was actually overseas in the US, but he was in Australia. So we connected, and we've been working together ever since. So I really admire his expertise in the digital advertising space. His experience spans from helping small businesses through to established household brands and growing them digitally and profitably online. So Steve, really looking forward to you taking away our social advertising masterclass. Thank you so much for coming along today. Really looking forward to sharing all of your knowledge with us.
Thanks, Claudia. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's always good to talk about this stuff because I think there's a lot going on and there's a lot of noise, and especially for small business owners, if you go and look up anything to do with Facebook ads or Google ads like we did last month or anything like that, it's often confusing because there's so much content and a lot of it is dated. Even content that might have only just come out a year ago no longer works or is no longer relevant or something's changed. Yeah. And so
every time I do my searches now, I do last month or last 12 months, because that's the thing, you'll look up something and it's just, it changes almost every day. It's crazy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't know that they can do time-based searches, but it's definitely relevant. And there's even things just in the last 2 to 3 weeks that as an agency we've done, and we've now just said, oh, hang on, something's changed and it's been affected due to an algorithm change, which Facebook actually never tells us about, but we just have to figure it out from the data. And yeah, it's affected a lot of our clients, and so we're actually rebuilding things. And again, if I had have held this last month, I would have told you to do one thing, and this month I'm going to tell you to do something different.
Something else. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think it is important to stay up to date, and so like I do appreciate getting the opportunity to share this with everyone who is running an e-commerce store and just needs to know what works and what they can do and how they can get started. So today's agenda, the things that I want to go through, there's so much, but I've tried to simplify it just to give you the foundations of what I would recommend that you do, and that if anyone comes to us as an agency, these are the things we always tick off on our boxes first as a checklist to say, are all these things right? And if they're not, this is what we spend our time building out, because we know this is the best place to start. So I'm sharing with you exactly what we do for our customers in order to get started. And then, as I mentioned earlier, if you were on early before the webinar started, that one of the more difficult things is once you've started running the ads is just taking some time, breathing, and then looking through the platform and looking at the results and then interpreting that to know what to do next. So there's going to be a few things that I'll mention through this webinar that will hopefully give you some ideas for that as well. So the agenda today is I want to go through the fundamentals, setting up the catalog feed, your campaign types, and the options that you should choose. I also really want to dive into the campaign structure, which is pretty kind of heavy going. And I will open it up to questions at that point rather than wait to the end, because I'm sure that some people that are watching this might have some questions, because there's a lot to go through there, even though I've tried to keep it as simple as possible. I'm going to just give you a little bit of insight into the creative and the offers of what you could put in your ads to get the best results. And also, if you don't know, you can actually spy on your competitors using Facebook's ad library. So I'm going to touch on that as well. So we'll dive straight in. The first thing I really want to talk about is getting set up the right way and using Facebook's Business Manager. So the Business Manager is free for everyone. And all you do is, once you've logged into Facebook, simply go and visit business.facebook.com. And that's their Business Manager account. And this is where we recommend you run all your ads. So you don't need it to run ads on Facebook, but if you don't use it, it's like kind of having a car without putting the fuel in. It is just so much better. There's so much more that you can do if you're using the business manager to manage your ads than just using your business page. So there's a fundamental difference between the two. And the other thing that I did want to say is that there's a lot of, typically they're larger style agencies or the older established agencies who actually will build out people's campaigns from their business manager, and you'll never get access. And if you decide to leave them one day and part ways and do something, they will keep all the data and you won't get anything, and you'll be starting off fresh. And I can tell you as a business owner myself, and understanding the digital world, data is everything. And if you're spending your hard-earned money to run ads, you deserve to keep your data. So what I recommend is you open your business manager account, and then even if you don't know where to start and you do decide to hire an agency straight away, you can give them access to your account and they'll build it out for you and run everything from there, but you own it. So that's the first thing. And I would say, don't skip that. Please just do that. It's going to protect you and your business in the long run, and it's going to be far better off. You'll be far better off for it. Now, if you've looked at Facebook ads in any way, or you've maybe watched something where people have explained Facebook ads, a lot of people will have talked about the Facebook pixel. And probably over the last couple of years, people are more aware of this now. But what it is, the Facebook pixel is just a piece of web code that you give to your web developer and they put on your website. And it just records the user activity that happens on the website. So Facebook gets signals from that piece of code if somebody views a certain page, or if they are in your shop and then they're looking at a particular product and then they add it to their cart, but perhaps they don't buy it. It will also track if someone does make a purchase, or even if they initiate checkout and they don't quite finish it. So there's a lot of different events that happen on your website that Facebook can track. And it's important for your ads so that you can see, well, what's actually happening. Are people clicking on my ads, going to my website and viewing my products? Are they actually adding it to their cart, or are they making a purchase? Because Facebook will then use that information to improve your ads automatically with their own algorithms and machine learning and everything else. Whereas if they didn't have any of this data, you're just flying blind and Facebook isn't getting any feedback. So the simplest way to describe this is you need it, you should install it. It's just a piece of code, it's not overwhelming, but it will help your ad campaigns. Now, unfortunately, Apple rolled out an update recently where they gave people on Apple devices the option to stop or to protect their privacy, for want of a better word. So people have been opted out or been opting out of tracking, and that's affected the pixel. So if you're on an Apple device, you may have seen those kind of messages. If you've clicked on an ad and interacted with something on Facebook, it would have popped up and said you can turn this off. And a lot of people have. And so the pixel isn't as effective as it once was. It still works with a lot of other devices, just not Apple. So what Facebook has done is they've started to roll out an API, which is sort of a way of getting around this tracking if it doesn't, if people have turned it off or opted out. And so when you're setting up the pixel, you'll also see this little tab, which is called aggregated event management. I know this is like really techie, and I hate talking about this with people who may not be technically minded, but just hold on if you can, because once you dive into this, you'll see it. And then I just want you to be familiar with it. But what the aggregated event management does is it basically does what the pixel can no longer do. So it's not affected by the iOS updates. And it, again, allows Facebook's machine learning to improve campaigns. So as an example, if you have an e-commerce store, once you set this up, you'll have different events that you can prioritize. So the highest priority, as an example, is, someone makes a purchase. That's ultimately what you want to happen. If they don't make a purchase, well, if they've entered their payment information, that's very high priority. That's, they're one step away from completing it. Just under that is initiate checkout, then add to cart, view content, and perhaps subscribe if they've opted into your email list. So fill that out as well. Get the pixel done, get the aggregated event management set up. Facebook walks you through it. It's not that difficult, but just take your time, get that right, and you're pretty well ready to start working on the nuts and bolts of your campaign. So I want to dive into audiences, and this is where you can really start to define who is going to see your ads. So there's a couple of different options, and the first one that I'm going to dive into is custom audiences. So a custom audience is great specifically for things like retargeting. So if someone visits your website and they don't make a purchase, but you want to show them another ad, that's called retargeting, and where they come back onto Facebook and then they see an ad because they visited your website. Or perhaps someone found you on Google, visited your website, and then the next time they went on Facebook, they saw an ad because you built a custom audience to show an ad for people who visited. You can also build out a custom audience for, say, an email list. So if you have a list of people who've bought something from you in the past, even if it's just their email address, you can upload that into Facebook, and Facebook will search out their database and see if there are people who have registered with that email address, so you can then show them an ad. This becomes really important when you start to get into lookalike audiences, which I'll touch on soon. You can also use things like engagement. So if you've been doing well on Instagram or on your Facebook business page, and you've been sharing content and you have a engaged audience there, you can build a custom audience for people who are engaging with your Instagram account. And you can do it time-based. So you could say, if someone's engaged with my Instagram account in the last 30 days, well, I want them to see this ad because I'm about to launch a new product. So there's all these options with custom audiences that are great. And one that I love is video engagement. If you create videos and you use them in your ads, then what you can do is you can tell Facebook, look, if someone's watched a certain percentage of this video, they're probably quite interested in what we do or what we're selling. So to give you an example, you could choose someone who's watched just 25% of a video and then use those people to show an ad to. But you could make it people who've watched 75% of the video, and then all of a sudden, those people are even more relevant to perhaps making a purchase at some point. So you can use video engagement as well to create a custom audience, which is like, it's really powerful once you start to look at these options. It gives you so many choices, and you can actually start to really build what we call a sales funnel, which I am going to dive into, and actually get the best results from your ads. The primary audience that you will probably build out is what's called saved audiences. And saved audiences is where you can actually choose to define the demographics of the people you're trying to target, as well as using interests or even job positions, or where they may be employed, or the industries that they're in, to start to actually target an audience and save that audience, so that when you're building out your ad campaigns, you can say, yes, I want to use this saved audience in this ad campaign. So it allows you to quickly build new ad sets when you're building those out. And it's also really good, especially when you're starting, where you might say, well, I want to run ads to 3 different saved audiences that I create to see which of those audiences are the most responsive and perhaps the most profitable. So it's very good to test. So I'm just going to dive into that a little bit deeper. And I just sort of made this up. But with interest, as you go into this saved audience and you start to look at the interests, for example, you can see on my screen, it says, I want to include people who match an interest in horse racing, horses, and horseback riding. Now, it also lets me narrow this audience, because that would be a big bucket. Anyone who watches any horse racing, or has seen a horse video or something and liked it, or goes horseback riding, that's a big audience. But perhaps you're in the gambling sector of the market, and you want people to sign up and start using your app to place bets. where you can narrow that audience now and say, okay, let's take all of those people who are interested in horses, but they also need to match that they've shown an interest in gambling. Now, what you can start to see is this is like those old Venn diagrams where you have that one circle and this is your horse racing and horse lovers. And then you have this gambling circle over here, and we're doing a crossover and we're saying, well, which of these are in both of these circles? And I should have had an image for this Venn diagram, but anyway, hopefully you can see my hands on the screen. What that does is it lets you sort of define that market. So if I was to say, okay, if I'm just going to put gambling in the top section and say, just include everyone who likes horses and gambling, well, you're going to get people who would gamble on poker or on football or on a whole lot of other things that aren't relevant to your horse racing ad. So what this does is it just says, you know, they need to like horses and they need to like gambling. But I can also go one step further than that. And I can say, I want to exclude people from these audiences, because you might get people who gamble and you might get people who show an interest in horses, but their interest in horses is for humane treatment of horses. And maybe they don't like horse racing and they don't like gambling on it. And those people probably like PETA, which is the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, which is a big movement right now. So every year when the Melbourne Cup runs in Australia, which is a horse racing event and, you know, world famous, there's a whole lot of activists who come out. Now, they have technically shown an interest in horse racing, and they may also gamble and play lotteries and all the rest, but actually they hate horse racing and they are never going to use your app because they detest it. So having this ability to exclude a certain demographic from this audience means that your ads are going to be more likely to be shown to the people that are most likely to buy from you or most likely to install the app. So it's a really powerful way of refining who you show ads to and who your possible best audience is, without showing the people who aren't ever going to interact, and you're going to throw money away by having your ads there. And even worse, you know, they might, you know, really start, in the case of someone like PETA, they could really come after your business and leave nasty comments on your ads and all sorts of things. So those interests and modifiers is something that we would suggest you take the time to build it out. Just in most cases, use your gut feeling for what those interest groups might be. And if you can narrow it and refine it and even add some exclusions, do that. And then save that audience so that you can use that at any time. The lookalike audiences. This is an interesting one because what it does is a lookalike audience is simply us saying to Facebook, listen, I've got all these people who I know are interested in what I've got to sell, but I want Facebook to go out and find the people who look like these people, but I don't know who they are. But Facebook does, because they've got the database on everyone. So for example, if your best customer enjoys, you know, going out to, you know, Indian restaurants and they love eating curry, as an example, and that's a popular theme with your audience, then you can tell Facebook, I want you to find more people like that. Just by uploading an email list, they will see all these people, you know, 90% of them like eating curries and they like eating out and they enjoy that spicy food. Well, Facebook will go and find you a whole lot of people just like that so that you can start to run ads to them. Or it might be people who have recently spent money on underwear, or it might be people who have recently gone to a live concert, or it might be people that, you know, like costume jewelry and they wear a lot of rings and watches and bangles and bands. So whatever it is, you can choose the source that you have, which might be people who have made a purchase from your website for a product, or it might be people who are on an email list who have subscribed, and telling Facebook, go out and find more people just like this, please. We'll give you another audience to run ads to. And I can tell you that lookalike audiences is generally very profitable. And it's a way of fast tracking your audience matching so that you don't have to rely on saved audiences and doing the work yourself to discover who's going to best suit your ads. This is like the shortcut, if you like, to getting in front of the people that are going to be potential customers. Finally, and I haven't really dived into this much, but I've just put a link here on the slides that you can follow. One of the most successful campaigns you'll ever run is your catalog campaign. And depending on how you set up your store and where it's hosted and all the rest, there's so many different ways that you can set up the catalog. So I didn't want to dive into the technical side of that today. But if you go to this link on Facebook, this will actually guide you through, depending on what platform you're on, how you want to set up, so whether you want to set it up directly in Facebook or you're using some other software to link it from your shop to Facebook. So by all means, go there and check that out. And what I might do, if I can, is...
I can do that. Do you want me to drop it into the chat?
Yeah, I just done it. So that's okay. Yeah. But go there and that'll show you how to set up your catalog. And I'll touch on the catalog soon as well. So when you're setting up campaigns, now that you've done all the hard work, you've gone and set up all the tracking and everything, you pixel and all the data, and then you're turning around, you've got your audiences in place and you're ready to start building a campaign. Facebook is going to give you this option as the first thing you need to choose. Choose your campaign objective. And there's a bunch of different campaigns here that you can run. What I would say is that there's 3 that we typically always use for e-commerce clients. The first one is catalog sales. And that means that if someone's looked at your catalog or visited your website, we want to show your catalog ads because they will be generally the best performing campaigns you'll ever run. So catalog sales is one that I would always choose. And generally it's what we call bottom of funnel, which I will dive into soon. But that's one of the ones you would use. The next one is conversions. Facebook actually tracks what happens with all of the users from Facebook. So if a user clicks on an ad and visits a website, Facebook knows that. So Facebook understands that that person is likely to click on an ad and visit a website. Some people on Facebook will never, ever click an ad, and they just won't. Or some people on Facebook will click an ad, visit a website, but they will never fill in information. Or some people will click on an ad, visit a website, look at a shop, add things into their shopping cart, but they will never make a purchase. And Facebook sees all of that. They also see the people that will see an ad, fall in love with the product, click, add it to cart, make the purchase, and then go back there 2 weeks later and make another purchase. So what happens is when you choose conversions, you can choose people who convert and make a purchase, and Facebook knows who those people are. So when you create an audience, you're saying, I want to advertise to all these people who like horses and horse racing because I'm selling, jockey gear. But I want to also target people who will convert and make a purchase. Facebook will take that massive audience of maybe 5 million people and then narrow it down to the 400,000 people who actually buy things from Facebook ads. All of a sudden, your campaigns are so much better than if you just chose a traffic campaign objective. And I have put an asterisk on traffic because traffic is simply someone who's clicked and visited the website, but it doesn't mean they've taken an action. What I would say is that it's normally cheaper for the click to bid or to use a traffic campaign. So for example, every time someone clicks on an ad, if you're using a traffic objective, it might only cost you 20 cents. But if you're using a conversion objective for purchases, it may cost you $1.20. So you can essentially get 6 more people visiting your website if you use a traffic campaign versus a conversions campaign. But it will also mean that those people are less likely to buy. People that do buy are still going to be in the traffic objective, but people who don't buy won't be in the conversions objective, if that makes sense. This is kind of a that computer logic, if this then that and or type logic. And I hope that makes sense. So now I want to look at campaign structure. You've built up your audiences, you've got all that ready, and you've started to set up your campaigns. The way that I'm going to describe this is in terms of what we call a sales funnel. And I would imagine that a lot of people may have heard of this already. If you haven't, a sales funnel is simply a way to describe the pathway that a customer takes before they make a purchase. So what happens is they come into the top of the funnel and they find out about you, they hear about your shop or the products that you sell, and then they move through this funnel into the middle, and then they read some testimonials and they look at the branding a little bit and they like your messaging and they like what you stand for, and then they actually go and look at the product and make a purchase, and that's at the bottom of the funnel. So each of these sections of a funnel plays an important role in moving each customer towards a purchase. And so when we think of building campaigns for our clients, this is how we think of it. We think about putting people in the top of the funnel and then moving them down the funnel so that they become a customer. So when we think of campaigns and we actually start to build them out, this is how we do it. This is like a real chart of sort of what we map out with our customers or our clients, and we sort of put this together and we say, well, this is where we're going to start. So I'm going to give you this footprint so that you can see, or a blueprint so you can see it and understand it, and then start to implement it for yourself. At the end of this section, I will open it up for questions on this, because there might be some things you want to know a bit more about. So with the top of funnel, this is where people who are totally unfamiliar with you and probably haven't ever heard of your brand or your business or your products that you're selling, this is where they fall into. This is where we're trying to get as many people into that top of funnel as possible for as cheap as possible, and hopefully people that will also make a purchase. What we would say here is when we build out the campaign, we would say we'd have two different types of campaigns that we would use. One would be an interest-based campaign, which is what we talked about with a saved audience. And one would be a lookalike audience campaign. So this is where, on the one hand, we're saying we're going to define this audience in our saved audience targeting using our interests and exclusions and narrowing, versus, hey, we've got a list of people who've maybe purchased from us in the past or registered their details with us, and we're going to upload that and create a lookalike audience. What I would say is with the top of funnel is that you can test your different interests, or you can group them together and let Facebook do the work. So in the case of that I raised earlier about the horse racing and gambling, you really want to try to build audience groups that are about 1 million people or more. That's where you're going to get the best results, because Facebook will actually, when you start to run the ads, they'll see which people are clicking on the ads. Even if you've got multiple interests in a group, Facebook will know, okay, well, actually, the people who belong to these 3 different interest groups are the ones clicking the most. Facebook will start to automatically show more ads to those people than the 2 other interests that are rarely engaging with your ads. So it's a good way to let the machine actually do the work for you. But if you're just starting, you might say, well, listen, I don't really know if these people with these interests are going to be good customers or these people with these interests. And you may want to find that out. And for some of our clients, that's exactly what we do. So we have one ad set, which is one interest group, and then we build another ad set, which is a totally different interest group, and we exclude the other group from that ad. So there's no crossover. This allows you to then really define your audiences better and understand what's working and what's not. Then as far as the ad content goes, we like to use dynamic ads, and we'll speak about that more later. But until you know what works, I would suggest you use dynamic ads, which we will touch on. And then you also have the ability to exclude people from seeing the ad. And this is also important. So when we run ads, we don't want people to see the ad forever, especially if they're not interested. Or if people see the ad and then they click on the website, we want them to enter a different part of the funnel. We don't want them to still see this ad because we've already exposed them to our brand and they've already clicked and visited the website. We want them to move down the funnel. So we're going to show them a different set of ads. So when we map this out, this literally goes from top to bottom. I hope that makes sense. But the top of funnel is an interest where we're optimizing for conversions or purchases. We're using dynamic ads to find the best performing ad. We're targeting interest-based audiences, and we're going to exclude anyone who's visited the website. We're going to set a budget of however many dollars per day so that we can get our ad seen. In the second top of funnel campaign, we're going to use a lookalike audience, which is going to be different. And in that one, we're going to still use dynamic ads. They might be the exact same ads as we've done in the interest campaign. And we're going to use a 3% customer list lookalike with what we call audience expansion or detailed expansion. That just means that Facebook will build that lookalike. And if they start to see a pattern with the people that are engaging in your ads, they'll go find other people who also have that same pattern but maybe aren't in your audience. Again, we'll exclude the website visitors for 30 days and we set our budget on that campaign. In the middle of funnel is a different campaign. This is people who we would generally say have engaged with you in some way. They know a little bit about you. And so a good example of this are people who have recently engaged in Facebook and Instagram. So if they've liked your Instagram post or they've commented or they've saved something or they've taken an action based on a post, they're engaged. So they're already familiar with your brand. Can, like I touched on earlier, can also include video viewers. And these people, it's best to use ads that make an offer of some kind, like a discount or free shipping, or if you've got a new product that's just come out. Those ads are generally highly effective for this middle of funnel audience. And again, we would exclude people who've visited the website and people who've added anything to their cart in the last 14 days. Because again, they're going to see this next part of the funnel, which is the bottom of the funnel. So typically we would have two campaigns here as well. So the first would be remarketing your catalog. So if anyone's actually looked at a product in your catalog, we want, and they didn't make a purchase, then we want to show that catalog to them. And there's a lot of reasons why people may have seen your ad, clicked on it, looked at your catalog, maybe even added something to their cart, but then disappeared because maybe they were at work and then the boss walked past and they shut down their screen. Maybe, they got called for dinner and they went off and did that. Maybe they just didn't have their wallet on them at the time, or maybe they just wanted some time to think about it. There's a lot of reasons why people leave before making a purchase. But what we know as advertisers is actually, if you show them ads for the next 14 days, the temptation becomes too great for a lot of them and they end up buying. So don't discount people who've added something to the cart but then didn't make a purchase, because they will be your best ROI on all of your campaigns. And again, what we would normally do with this is we would exclude anyone who makes a purchase, so that once they've made the purchase, we give them 14 days. That gives you time to actually ship out the product to them and all the rest. And then they might start to see new ads from you again. So overall, when we map this out, this is kind of what it looks like. So each blue square is its own campaign. And if you go vertically down the page, these are the different sections that you would fill in once you're in Facebook building out the campaign. So this is just a template that we use as an agency so that we know, okay, this is exactly who we're targeting with this particular campaign, how much we want to spend on it, who we're excluding, who we're including, and the kind of ad content we want to promote. And so we understand once we do this, this gives us the platform to then go and actually build out everything that we're building out. I hope that makes sense. I know there's a lot to go through here. So what I did want to do just quickly here if anyone has any questions specifically on this funnel type or the campaigns or anything like that, please put it in the chat now, and I'd be happy to answer these questions before I go any further.
While they're maybe having a think, I've got a quick question.
Sure.
Pick me.
Yeah, Claudia, you're up.
So in terms of all of the like top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, you're optimizing for all of them except for bottom, the catalog one, for conversions or purchases. So my understanding or my thinking, like way in the past, is top of funnel, you might do some broader targeting, even if you do middle of funnel, add to cart, or a certain number of page views or something or other. So just wanting to understand, or is this basically to drive highly cost-effective revenue, campaigns? Yeah.
So my answer to that would be it depends.
Yeah.
It depends a lot on how much money you've got to spend and how big the business is. If you're just starting out and you're just wanting to test it, this will give you the shortcut to find the most likely people to buy. But what you might find is that if you only stay with this, and as your shop grows and as you make more sales, you're going to have to broaden that audience. There's just no two ways about it.
Yeah, you'll get your saturation points. Okay,
so
good.
So once we
that makes a lot of sense.
once we start to, like, just as a rule of thumb, once we start to get to where someone's spending maybe $5,000 a month on ads or more, we wouldn't use these options. We would change this campaign quite differently. But that's why I did put the asterisk next to the traffic, because while traffic is great, you can pay a lot of money for traffic that doesn't make a purchase. And so once you're profitable and you've dialed in and you've got your ads working really well and you know your audience that's converting and all the rest, you can take that information and then put it into traffic and you'll see better results. Whereas when you're just starting, someone who clicks is very different to someone who makes a purchase. And you might actually get incorrect signals over, well, these people are clicking these ads because it was a really cool ad, but they're never going to make a purchase.
Okay.
And so this is why I would just say, and again, it's difficult because there are so many options and there's so many people here today who would have totally different stores and they would be selling totally different products. So this is just my best advice for how you would start.
Which is good, because we had, I think, 100% of people that were on in the beginning, so they've all just started their beginning ad. So what we're saying is for our people watching today, this is a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Did we get any other questions in the chat? Yeah. Did anybody else have any questions? There's no more questions in the chat. So if you want, we can keep going and then you can ask them in the Q&A at the end.
At the end.
What do you think? Yeah?
Yeah, I think it's a smart idea. Let's just keep going. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the ads that work, what I would say is that you really want to have good images and, take your time to get a nice clean photo of whatever products you're selling. Same with whatever you're putting up on the website. Try to make them as clear as you can. And also videos are really good. So there's things like software like Animoto, for example, where you could upload 10 or 20 different photos and then it'll automatically create a video for you. Facebook actually now does this for you as well if you want. So they will animate your still images as well. There's options when you're creating the ads for it to do that. But take the time to do that because your images are going to be a big driver of sales. Now, I would say also write down benefit-driven product details. I'm going to go through this in a minute, where you're actually describing the product and describing what's different about it or describing the benefits with your products. And don't be afraid to type out a really, really long description, or just try a really short description of it, and see which works, because some I can tell you, I had this discussion all the time where people will say to me, yeah, we just think, a very short text will work. And I say, well, do you mind if we test something else? And they say, okay, yeah, you can test it, but we're pretty sure this will work. And then a month later, we turn around and say, well, you got 5 times the sales from the long description. And then they're just sold. It's not always the case, which is why we like to test. Also, you want a call to action. So when you look at a lot of big branding ads, they often don't have a call to action. It's just kind of, they put something out there, and there's a button that might say shop now, but they don't actually say anything in the ad. Whereas we like to tell people what we want them to do. I think that's always a good rule of thumb if you're just starting. And also think about any offers or discounts. Now, just on this, we know a lot of small businesses get told by branding agencies that you shouldn't ever discount your product because it cheapens your brand. Now, if I was Chanel, I would never discount my product because I've already established my brand and people know what they're getting and they pay a premium. But if you're a small startup store and people don't know anything about you, they don't know if they can trust you, they don't know if you're, just doing drop shipping from China and that these products are really inferior. They don't know anything. So what I would say is offers and discounts will really have a big impact in people actually biting in and saying, okay, I'm going to make this purchase and take this opportunity to try this product. With dynamic ads, I mentioned this earlier, but what a dynamic ad is that allows you to feed Facebook a number of different options for the different assets in the ad. So in the case, you can upload multiple images, multiple videos, different types of text, headlines, choose different buttons, and Facebook will actually then use different components in your ads to see, well, which of these work best, which image is most attention grabbing, and what is stopping people scrolling on their news feed as they're flicking through their phone, and what text have they read, which has actually caused them to click on the ad and actually go and get a sale. So dynamic ads is a great way for you to say, you know what, we're not 100% sure which of our images or which of our calls to action or which of our headlines is going to be best. So you just feed the machine with multiple options and you let Facebook do the work. So I would always recommend, if you're just getting started, to do this and use dynamic ads, which I mentioned in the top of funnel. That way you can see the breakdown and you can see, well, what did Facebook say works best? And later on, you might then pull those components out and create them as their own separate ads. I want to just dive into some ad examples really quickly. And this is an example of a big brand ad. It's Lululemon. And the ad simply says, stretch your pace in technical tight shorts with a raw edge hem for no dig-ins and no inseam for an extra smooth stride. And it's a pair of exercise shorts. And it just has on the headline down below, base pace high-rise shorts and newest running innovation, shop now. So when a lot of our customers or our clients see their big brand competitors or the people they think they're competing against, they'll often say, why don't we replicate these kind of ads? But the truth is, we don't actually know how well this ad works. We don't know whether this ad works really well because Lululemon is extremely well known and very popular and has a thriving market already. We just don't understand what is going on behind that ad that is either making it successful or not. And while they have a pretty good benefit-driven description, they don't have any offer. So again, as a small brand, I would suggest don't copy someone like this who might be a direct competitor. Instead, do something a little bit different. So for example, this sportswear brand is saying, hey, on Cyber Monday, you can get 20% off our Garcia hoodie. So they're making an offer. If someone likes this and they're looking for a hoodie and it looks cool to them, this company is saying, well, you'll get 20% off. And really what you want to start doing is you want to start building your library of people who purchase, because if they purchase once from you and they're happy with the product, chances are they'll purchase again. And it's just going to give you a good return on your investment. So I like this ad. It says innovative design meets waterproof technology, the most advanced hoodie in the world. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't even know if they're allowed to say that, but That's what they're saying. And this is what we would call a short form ad. So there isn't a lot of text, pretty simple, but it has a good offer. The other thing that you could do is a seasonal special. So for example, in this particular one, they're saying there's a Halloween sale. You can get 25% off if you use Spook25 as a code. So it's just showing some pretty cool rings if you're into that sort of thing, and you can get 25% off for this season. It's also really good to do on new product releases. If you can also, people like new, especially if they already know about your product or they're looking for something in that space. That's a good way of generating interest, but giving them that extra hook of a bit of a discount up front will also help cross the line. Finally, if you're looking for ideas on ads, Facebook have what's called an ad library, and they released this mainly because of everything that was happening in American politics at the time, and people wanted more transparency with political ads. But you can now go and see if anyone is running Facebook ads, their ads will show up in the ad library. So if you just do a search for Facebook ad library, you'll find this. You can type in the name of the company that you want to look at, and you can see all of their ads, or you can perhaps type in a category and it'll come up with any ads that might be running in that category. And then you can start to see, well, what are other people doing? What's my competitor doing? What offers are they making? What do their images look like? And you can start to get a good understanding of that. And that's pretty much me done, I think. We've covered off on a lot. The last thing that I would say is once you get all this done, take the time to look at the analytics, look at your click-through rates, look at who's making a purchase, look at you can go into area in Facebook to get a breakdown, and you can start to see, the different placements that work, the age groups that interacted most and made the most purchases. And all of that information will give you the tools to be able to optimize your campaigns and build better campaigns going forward. And on that note, Steve, I am going to hand this over to you, Claudia.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. I think you've touched on a lot of very important aspects of getting started and provided a pathway for people to think about, just those sort of, initial steps. But in saying that, even though you've simplified it a lot, there's so much strategy and experience behind what you've just seen. A lot of people don't give away their funnels and how they think about things. Usually you get in there and you fumble around, or you're paying big bucks for it. So thanks a lot for sharing what you do with your clients, Steve. So look, just to finish off, I won't take too long because I know we're just slightly over time, but I just wanted to wrap up for our final masterclass in the e-commerce growth framework series. So we've obviously the last 10 months, I started off with talking about the overarching framework, and then since then we've actually broken each of those foundations down into individual masterclasses. I just wanted to give you a quick couple of tips on where to go from here. So if you haven't seen my first masterclass, hop onto YouTube or hop onto the Shopmatic webinars page. But basically I was showing how many small businesses that I've worked with in the past, when I've had a look at their revenue over time, I've often seen this sort of peaks and troughs, sort of month-on-month revenue trend. And a lot of them come to me saying, my revenue per month is around this much, and sometimes it goes up, but it just keeps coming back down to that level. And this is very much because they're applying a traditional sort of campaign on and off approach to their digital advertising, which often produces these kinds of results. So with the e-commerce growth framework that I've gone through over the last 10 months with Shopmatic, I've actually shown how each of these foundations can drive sustainable growth over time. So this really does lay the foundations to maximize your future efforts, and it removes those peaks and troughs. Now, you will still get mini peaks and troughs, but with the foundations in place and having always on campaigns, as Steve was presenting, we actually start to get this more sustained growth. And then once we get that, and again, to Steve's point, once you get those basic foundations and you know your audiences, you know the cost per conversion, some of those sorts of things, then you can start to add in those campaigns, which will give you the lifts, but you won't get the big troughs that you get if you're doing, just campaign, switching it on, switching it off, switching it on, switching it off, for example. So basically, if you haven't seen all the masterclasses, they are available to you via Shopmatic. But one thing that you can do, which I'd like to offer everybody, is in terms of going next steps, I've actually developed a worksheet, which I sort of call an opportunities worksheet, and you can actually use this worksheet through each of the masterclasses, and it actually gives you a bit of a step-by-step in identifying where the opportunities are for you to grow. So here you can see my email address, claudia@withsmallbusiness.com. If you do want to go back through the masterclasses at some stage, please just email me. I'm happy to send you this PDF. But basically, it'll go through each of the classes. It asks you some questions in terms of things that you have implemented or things that you haven't. And then anything that you haven't done, you go in and put a number 1, 2, 3 all the way through to the rest of the boxes, and they actually then become your opportunities for growth or your focus for your next priorities in terms of where best to spend your money and your time in the e-commerce foundation, so that you can actually build that sustainable growth. So I'm really happy to share that with you, which will really help you take all of the sessions into sort of practical steps that you can apply to your business. So now we will just finish off with our final poll. So are you planning on advancing your social advertising to grow your business after we've learnt some wonderful best practices and tactics from Steve today? So Uma, if you can, thank you, put up the poll. So are you planning on advancing your social advertising? A yes, a no, or you might still be unsure.
Well, we do have people answering now, and so far, we were at 100% of yes until someone just pinged it unsure. That's
Good
all
job,
right.
Steve.
That's okay. I'm happy not to have a no. Right. So I think that's important. I mean, the fact that people earlier had shared with us that they were not really doing any social ads, and we were so glad that they were joining us in this session today because they were in the right place, and we've sort of persuaded a few of them to say yes, they are now going to be actively doing social ads, and a few of them are unsure. That's fine. Like I said, I think the important bit is for you to have the right piece of information, the knowledge and the guidance, which is what these masterclasses are all about. So that you are equipping yourself with the information. You may not be ready for it right away, but entrepreneurship is a journey. It's not, it's not something that you do for a few days. It's not about tomorrow. It's not about the day after. It's about being sustainably in the business for the next 1 year. And when you get ready for it, you can refer back to this particular information, this knowledge, and lean back into our specialists here and take the guidance. So I think that's what's really, really important. So I'm going to close the poll now. So at this point in time, we have about 2/3 who said yes and 1/3 who said I'm unsure. Still no one said no, and that's a success.